The forecast said £480,000. The board planned around it. Hires were approved, stock was ordered, delivery capacity was increased, and the month closed at 290,000. Nobody had lied. The pipeline had simply been allowed to tell a story nobody had tested. Businesses don't stop growing by accident. They stop growing because leaders miss what's really holding them back. Welcome to Why Businesses Stop Growing, the podcast for business owners, CEOs, and investors who want to build stronger, more profitable, and more valuable businesses. I'm Chris Wimshurst, commercial growth advisor and founder of Hawthorne Advisory. Each week, I'll diagnose the commercial challenges holding businesses back, share practical insights from over 25 years of leadership and commercial experience, and give clear recommendations to help you grow with confidence and build lasting business value. That £480,000 was not completely imaginary. There were real prospects, real meetings, and real proposals. The problem was that activity had been mistaken for evidence. A proposal sent was treated like a buying decision. A positive conversation sounded like budget. A close date in the CRM became a fact simply because nobody had challenged it. And when the number failed, the business didn't just miss revenue, it had already made decisions based on revenue that was never properly committed. So today, we'll get underneath that problem. Why does a pipeline become unreliable? What should you change without killing genuine opportunities? And why does forecast quality affect far more than the sales meeting? Because a pipeline can look full and still leave the business commercially underfed. So what right? Here's a deal I see in many forms. £120,000 of software or transformation work. It has been marked proposal since March. The seller has held 2 meetings, sent 3 versions and received encouraging replies. It is still in the forecast for this quarter. But the buyer has not confirmed the budget, involved procurement, or booked a meeting with the person who can approve the spend. The seller has done plenty. The buyer has done almost nothing. That is the difference leaders need to see. This isn't a criticism of salespeople. Optimism can be useful. It keeps possibilities alive and helps people work through obstacles. But when optimism becomes the operating system for the forecast, every opportunity that might happen remains on the board. 3 months becomes 6, 6 becomes 9. Eventually, the original business problem has changed, the budget has moved, or the decision maker has disappeared. But the opportunity is still inflating coverage. Sales stages can make that worse. Qualified, proposal, negotiation, verbal approval. They sound objective, but often they mean different things to different people. In one company, proposal means approved budget and a live buying process. In another, it means somebody asked for a document. If a stage can be reached without a meaningful customer action, it is probably measuring internal progress, not commercial progress. The stage name isn't the evidence. The buyer's behavior is. For every material opportunity, I want 4 answers. Keep them in your head as action, consequence, decision, and path. Has the buyer taken action? Is there a commercial consequence if they do nothing? Do we understand how the decision will be made? And is there a credible path to close? Action means something observable. The buyer supplies data, arranges a workshop, introduces procurement, confirms a budget, or books the next decision meeting. They like the idea, is not action. Consequence means there is a reason to move now. Are they losing money, time, capacity, or control by waiting? If the only urgency comes from your quarter end, that's not customer urgency. Decision means you know who decides, who influences, who can stop the purchase, and what process sits between interest and signature. And path means the remaining steps are visible, owned and dated. Not, we're just waiting for the customer. Waiting for what? Which customer action? By when? If nobody can answer, the close date is probably a wish. Now, before someone says, that sounds too conservative, it is if you use it to kill possibilities. It isn't if you use it to stop possibilities being mistaken for commitments. Long sales cycles can be genuine. Complex buying groups can move slowly. Public sector or major transformation decisions may have a perfectly legitimate timetable. The answer is not yes or no. The answer is to separate potential from confidence. Committed revenue has strong evidence and an understood remaining route within the period. Probable revenue has a real commercial case, but important conditions remain unresolved. Possible revenue may become valuable, but it is not strong enough to use for hiring, stock, or overhead decisions. Coverage tells you how much could happen. Credibility tells you how much you can responsibly plan around. Never confuse the two. This is where leadership either improves the system or quietly damages it. If the meeting rewards optimism and punishes bad news arrives late. If slippage is treated as personal failure, people protect opportunities instead of testing them. You want a salesperson to be able to say, this is possible, but budget isn't confirmed, without feeling they have failed. A clean forecast is not one with no uncertainty. It's one where uncertainty is visible. Your weekly review can be much shorter than most businesses make it. Start with accuracy. What did we forecast last week? What actually happened? And why was there a difference? Then look at exceptions. Which material deals changed category? Which dates slipped? Which opportunities have no buyer-owned next action? Which ones have been carried forward for the third or fourth week? Make it sound like a real conversation. It slipped because the customer needed more time. Fine. Which action are we waiting for? The finance director's budget sign-off. When is that happening? They haven't said. Then it isn't committed. It may still be possible, but the category needs to tell the truth. For each important deal, agree one next action owned by the buyer. Your team sending another email matters, but the buyer taking a step tells you whether the deal is moving. Track why opportunities slip as well. Not just customer timing. Was the business case weak? Was the decision maker absent? Did procurement appear late? Was there no budget? Did the offer become difficult to buy? After a few weeks, those patterns tell you whether the issue sits in qualification, positioning, access to senior buyers, or the design of your commercial process. A forecast review can diagnose the whole revenue engine. Apply the test intelligently. A repeat purchase does not need the same proof as a major transformation program. A renewal behaves differently from a new enterprise contract. The framework stays the same, action, consequence, decision path, but the evidence must fit the deal, the sector, and the buying process. Don't turn it into a mechanical scoring exercise. Use it to improve judgment. Why does this matter outside sales? Because false confidence changes behavior. You hire ahead of demand, you buy capacity, you extend working capital. You postpone pricing decisions because the pipeline appears to solve the problem. Then the revenue fails to arrive and margins absorb the mistake. A bad forecast is not merely an inaccurate spreadsheet. It is a chain of expensive decisions. It matters to investors and potential buyers too. They don't expect certainty. They do expect a leadership team that understands uncertainty. A company with a smaller pipeline, clear categories, visible conversion, and a history of accurate forecasting is often more investable than one with a huge pipeline nobody trusts. Potential is attractive. Predictability is valuable. That is how better forecasting becomes business value. The revenue engine becomes easier to plan, easier to coach, and less dependent on the founder's optimism, relationships, and memory. Try this with the 10 largest opportunities in your pipeline. Write down the last meaningful action taken by the buyer, the commercial consequence of delay, the people involved in the decision, and the remaining steps to close. Then place each one into committed, probable, or possible. Don't ask the team to make the answer sound positive. Ask them to make it observable. You may discover the pipeline is smaller than you thought. Good. Smaller and credible beats larger and fictional every single time. And if that exercise makes you uncomfortable, don't demand more activity. More calls, emails, and meetings do not automatically create revenue. Improve qualification. Clarify the buyer's problem. Reach the people who can approve the decision. Make the next step real. Let's pick the sweet corn out of that. The problem is rarely that your team is not busy enough. Busyness has been mistaken for evidence. So the next time someone says, we've got plenty in the pipeline, ask 4 questions before you celebrate. Has the buyer acted? Is there a commercial consequence? Do we understand the decision? Is there a realistic path to close? Those questions won't eliminate uncertainty, and they shouldn't. They make it visible early enough to manage. That's the real job of a forecast. Not to predict the future perfectly, but to help leaders make better decisions before the future arrives. If your pipeline needs a more honest conversation, follow Why Businesses Stop Growing and share this episode with another owner, CEO, or sales leader who relies on pipeline totals. Post which category needs the most improvement in your organization? Committed, probable, or possible? Thanks for listening to Why Businesses Stop Growing. If this episode made you think differently about your business, follow the show and share it with another leader who'll find it valuable. Until next time, understand thoroughly, assess independently, and recommend clearly, and keep asking why.